Tens of thousands of manufacturing supporters call on Congress to bolster American competitiveness. We'll talk about that and much more on this episode of The Crude Truth.
In 1901, at Spindletop Hill near Beaumont, the future of Texas changed dramatically as, like a fountain of fortune, thousands of barrels of oil burst from the earth towards the sky. Soon, Detroit would be cranking out Model Ts by the millions, and America was on the move, thanks to the black gold being produced in Texas. Now, more than a century later, the vehicles are different, but nothing else has truly changed. Sure, there may be many other alternative energy sources like wind and solar and electric. But let's be honest, America depends on oil and entrepreneurs, and if the USA is truly going to be independent, it has to know the crude truth.
NAPE is a proud sponsor of The Crude Truth. Be sure to register for the NAPE Expo 2024, February 7th through the 9th at the George R. Brown Convention Center in Houston, Texas. Hurry and register today. NAPE, where deals happen.
This episode is brought to you by LFS Chemistry, committed to being good stewards of the environment and providing the tools so you can be too. NAPE Expo, where deals happen. Air Compressor Solutions. When everything is on the line, Air Compressor Solutions is the dependable choice to keep commercial business powered up. Sandstone Group. Exec Crew. Elevate your network, elevate your knowledge. Oil and Gas Workers Association. Pecos Country Operating. Fueling our future.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever the time of day is. I cannot thank you enough for tuning in and watching or listening to another episode of The Crude Truth. It is just an amazing time of year as we wrap up the year and we look forward to 2024. We just got so many things going on. And right now we're just looking at a Congress that has just turned over a new chapter, hopefully. And hopefully we're going to be more pro-America with this Congress as we continue to move forward, which leads me today not only to hopefully we're going to be more pro-America, but we're also going to be pro-American jobs and manufacturing here in America. And that's why today I have brought on somebody that understands manufacturing, made in America, probably one of the best that's doing it right now in America, but also he's fighting for us. My guest today is the voice of America's equipment manufacturing, Kip Eideberg. Kip, how are you?
Hey Ray, I'm doing great. It's a crisp, sunny day here in Washington D.C. The outlook, couldn't be better, at least weather-wise. But I guess you and I will get into what the outlook is for American manufacturing, and as you said, how we can continue to bolster our competitiveness. But I really appreciate being on the show today. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very, very much. Joe set this up. Joe is great. And, you and him and everybody else that we've had on this year, y'all are vital veins to what America is, to the employees, to workers in America, and to really just trying to, lack of better words, make America again. I won't, because we don't go one way or the other. But we're just really trying to bolster our economy. And, as my teaser, we talked about how you and your group are trying to really get Congress to help American manufacturing, which probably also leads to bringing back jobs. But to my listeners out there, real quick, Kip, I just want to, Kip, you are the Vice President of Government and Industry Relations for the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. You have been on Fox News, Newsmax, The Energy Question with David Blackman, and the Energy News Beat with Stu Turley. So you have just been all over really advocating for all these great things for American manufacturing. If you don't mind, Kip, tell our listeners about you and the great organization.
Yeah, happy to do so, Ray. So yes, the Association of Equipment Manufacturers, almost 130 years old, headquartered in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, right in the heart of the equipment manufacturing industry.
Yes.
We represent what we call the off-highway equipment manufacturing industry. Put it differently, any equipment that you or any of your listeners will see on a farm, at a construction site, in a mine, those companies are members of our association. About 2.3 million jobs that our industry supports across the country, almost $320 billion worth of economic activity. We are about 11th percent of the total U.S. manufacturing base. So a good slice of American manufacturing. That's our industry. Those are our member companies, and our job, put simply, is to advocate for our industry, to move our industry forward so that they can move our country forward.
Yes. And, let's talk about that. You mentioned anything off highway, but, let's dive in. You mentioned, the forestry group, Farmers of America, the mining. I mean, literally, you are literally boots on the ground, doing the hard and dirty work. Are you represent the individuals that do the hard work every day that make life easier for all of us other Americans that don't do those jobs every day? And it's just a shame that you have to fight for this on a daily basis with Congress. I mean, what is it about that surprises you the most when you're there? You're obviously in Washington, D.C., and you're trying to get Congress to help out more American and bringing back manufacturing. What to you is the biggest surprise?
Well, I think we've lost track as a country of not only what it means to make things in America, and we like to say, just picking up on what you said earlier, Ray, we like to say that the 2.3 million men and women of our industry make the equipment that helps build, power, and feed the world.
Yes.
So I think we've lost track of that, and I think we've lost track of what manufacturing is. I just came back from Mississippi. I was in Texas before then. We're heading down to West Virginia in a couple of weeks to visit equipment manufacturing facilities. We bring lawmakers out to educate them, and it never ceases to amaze me when you get a lawmaker walking out on that shop floor, looking at the very sophisticated, I should say, manufacturing processes that we bring to bear, that our member companies bring to bear. How surprised they are. Everyone has a sense of what manufacturing is or what they think it is, but until you set foot on a shop floor, I don't think you have any real sense of just how advanced, how sophisticated, how impressive it is. So I think that's the biggest surprise, continues to be the biggest surprise. And then I think also sometimes just the sheer lack of will to champion policies that help move the manufacturing sector forward. If we cannot make things in this country, then I'm not sure we have much of a future.
You talk about making things here in America. Let's talk about AEM. The Association of Equipment Manufacturing. I don't know if you'd like to share who some of your members are, but let's talk about the equipment more importantly that y'all are building in America. Like you mentioned Milwaukee, and I just think about me being in the oil and gas industry. We always have those cordless Milwaukee power tools, but that's just kind of what comes to my mind. But can you kind of share with what industries you're fighting to build the equipment for farmers, for forestry people, and you're trying to get it all built here in America? Can you kind of just share a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. Happy to. So we've got more than 1,000 member companies, small, mid-sized, large, multinational. They all have one thing in common. They do business here in the United States. Now, not all of them are American-owned companies, and we're fine with that. We would like to actually see more foreign companies come to America and set up shop here, because guess what? That means they're going to create more American jobs, more family-sustaining manufacturing jobs. So, you could, whether you are German-owned, Japanese-owned, or American-owned, you make things in America, you make equipment in America, you're part of our industry. And our members tend to service 5 sectors, right? So we talked about that: mining, construction, agriculture, utilities, and forestry. So, whether they are making excavators, dozers, combine harvesters, forage harvesters, tractors, sprayers, planters, drill rigs, horizontal drills, mining trucks, and some of them make the parts and components that go into those pieces of equipment. They're all members of ours. And so, I bet you that any one of your listeners would see at least one piece of equipment that our members make on every single day. They just don't think about it, right?
Right. No, and I'm gonna make this comparison and tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm gonna compare you to Boeing, to Lockheed Martin. That those companies are making things that help defend America. You guys are making things that help grow and sustain American life in a much simpler way. I mean, you're mentioning combine. So I'm thinking, and again, I don't know if these are your members or not, but I'm just thinking John Deere. You mentioned excavators, which I use on a daily basis when I'm drilling oil wells. I'm thinking of Caterpillar, Kubota, individuals like that. And if we can have those manufacturing jobs back in America, I mean, how great would that be to have all of them back here? I mean, there was a report, speaking of manufacturing jobs, that says that U.S. states, that Texas was actually the top one, followed by Indiana and Wisconsin. Talk a little bit about the equipment manufacturing, maybe just here in America as a whole, and where you think we can go with it here over the next over the next few years. Do you think we can get more?
I think we can. I wouldn't be in this job if I didn't. Right.
Right.
You have to be a happy warrior to make the case every day, every single day. For manufacturing. And you bring up a good point, Ray. How do we create more jobs, right?
Yeah.
Because these are, and I think it's important to tell your listeners, these jobs in the equipment manufacturing industry, they are family sustaining jobs. They're good paying jobs. The average salary is about $89,000 in our industry. Now that's 33% above the national average.
Yeah.
33% above the national average. These are, again, family sustaining jobs that allow people to have a good career, to take care of their families, put their kids through school, save a little bit for retirement, and make an impact, not
Yeah.
just in their communities, but on the country as a whole. So we do need to create more of these jobs, and we do need to have policies that make it easier for equipment manufacturers to create these jobs. 2.3 million jobs our industry supports, but the downside, or the headwinds that we're facing right now, is that we have 85,000 open positions across the industry, across the country, and we cannot find enough people to take on those jobs. So here we are trying to grow our businesses. That is, our member companies are trying to grow their businesses, hire more people, invest in their communities, move the economy forward. They got open positions. They got no one to fill them. So that's a challenge. That's one of the many things that we are fighting for day in and day out as the association, is how can we create an environment where more young men and women are encouraged and feel excited about pursuing careers in manufacturing.
I want to kind of jump on that. And as I told you beforehand, we kind of talked about what we want to talk about, but you mentioned the fact that we have 85,000 open jobs right now. And I read a case study a while back, or just actually a couple of weeks ago, that some companies were choosing to take their jobs overseas in their manufacturing, because if a job needed like 1,500 engineers, hypothetically, or that it would take them 18 to 24 months to fill those here in the United States, while in another foreign country, it may only take 6 to 12 weeks. What is it about that difference that we can, what is it that we can do? You mentioned the young guys, but why is that? Why are we taking longer to fill these job positions?
That's a great question, Ray. If I had one single answer to that, I'd be out of a job, because challenge met and solved. There's a combination of factors at play here. I think number one, we have gotten away from defining how we define success for young men and women, and for kids, really, right? I mean, for a long time, this is not news to you. It's not news to your listeners. Success has been defined as you go to high school, then you go to college, you get a 4-year, degree. Maybe you go on and pursue, a grad school degree or not, and then you get off and you get a job, and typically those are white collar jobs, and there's nothing wrong with those jobs at all. In fact, we need those. We need jobs of all kinds in this country. But I think the flip side is that we've sort of downplayed, what it means to work in manufacturing. It's been for some time seen as a dirty, as a dangerous, as a dark environment in which to work, and nothing could be further from the truth. You go to a modern equipment manufacturing facility today, you could eat off the floor. The facilities are bright, they're quiet. People are using robotic welder, Google Glass, all kinds of technologies, robots moving parts and components around the shop floor. So these are not the same jobs that we had 50, 100 years ago. So I think we got to change the way we look at what it means to be successful, what it means to have a good family sustaining job. So I think that's number one. And really it starts, people like to talk about how it's important that we get out to high schools and talk to high school kids about what are you going to do when you graduate. I think our point of view is that high school, it's too late. You got to start in middle school, maybe elementary school, and get
Well,
kids excited about, hey, look at that big digger. I too want to build that or operate that or be part of the company that produces those.
well, you mentioned dirty jobs, and I'm going to get back to that one in a second about something else you're working on. But I want to keep with the young Americans that aren't excited. And you're absolutely right that we have been now built, and I believe in college. I'm working on a master's myself right now. I'm almost 40. I'm going back now. My undergrad is in organizational development and behavior. And then I got into the oil and gas industry after college and started at the bottom. And just like all the other 18 and 19-year-olds, here I am 23 years old, and started there working with my hands and worked my way up. And I think, like you said, there are some big phobias or some bad play on working a job in a factory making $90,000 a year, because I remember I saw a post or a meme the other day that it says, what happened to the days when a father could afford, 2 kids, a house, and a vehicle on one paycheck alone? We've lost that. But these jobs that you have definitely help get us back to that point. And we need to get people excited. You mentioned that maybe high school is too late. You could be right. Sometimes I get asked questions about, well, why do these oil and gas oil field workers get paid so much? And it's like, because they've been doing this job now for 5-6 years, which would be no different than anybody that wanted to become a plumber, an electrician, or somebody that works at a plant. At 18 years old, they're at the bottom of the food chain at 18 in any job, right? I mean, you're a grunt. And then by the time they're 22 or 23, they're making $90,000, $100,000. When people like me that went to college, which again, I'm a pro. I love college. College was great, and I recommend it. If anybody asks me if they ever should go, I'm gonna say yes. But look at what you want to do. That those guys are now starting out at 60,000 at 22 years old, while the other guys that are also, that are the same age and have more experience. Another example I would say is I have a son, and if by some craziness he wanted to play basketball or baseball for as a profession after high school, I'm going to send him overseas. It's like, I understand that 1 year of college and done. No, go overseas, get the experience in the profession you want to be in, and then get that. And that's where I think kind of, some people are trying to brainwash us in other ways when we're younger than high school already. So we might as well tell people that, hey, these aren't bad jobs. I mean, electricians are making over $100,000 a year. Plumbers are making over $100,000 a year. Manufacturing, getting back to it. These guys have great and a lot of them are union jobs, if I'm correct. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, there are union and non-union, right? And
Yes.
our member companies are both. Some have facilities that are both union and non-union, depending on where they're located.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but many of them are. That's correct,
Yeah.
right?
And I want to kind of come back to the dirty jobs. Tell us about I Make America. It's that show, or that not that show. I'm sorry. It is what you've launched with Mike Rowe, who used to do that show, Dirty Jobs. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And it's not a show. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's all right, Ray. I'm happy to do so. Let me just get back very briefly to what you mentioned earlier about the college grad, coming out of college earning 60,000 perhaps, right? Versus
Right.
the person who went to a trade school and is starting out at a higher salary. Well, the other thing too is that more likely than not, the young man or woman coming out of college also is carrying debt,
Yeah.
which, the individual who went to a trade school is more than likely not. So not
Yeah.
only is the salary going to be different right off the bat, you also have some debt that you need to take care of. And again, I love the fact that you're stressing that college is a good thing. We should
Yeah.
encourage that. But I think in the past, it's been the only way to success, or that's been the perception. I think that's where we've fallen short. It is by
It
far
is.
not the only way
Yeah.
to have a meaningful, successful, well-paying, family-sustaining career. So
It is. There's a lot of ways, and I'll bring it to a personal level that I'm Hispanic, and one of my grandfathers is originally from Mexico, and didn't speak a lot of English, but he believed more than anything that education was key. And so my mother, did high school, went to college, and she got a master's, and she's done very well. But again, that was the 1950s, the 1960s, and it was just a totally different mentality back then. Of hey, I never want to fault a father that said back in the day, I want you to do more than me, right? You don't want to sit here and work hard. And which there's nothing wrong with that, because we always want the generations to do more and do better. Because of that love that all these mothers and fathers have had for their sons and daughters, I think that's also possibly gone into this whole work shortage in the manufacturing world, where you had the fathers that were making the vehicles in Detroit or Milwaukee. And now they're like, you don't want this, but you know what? Now we need those jobs more than ever. And unfortunately, not only do we need them now more than ever, but we have a government, Kip, that doesn't want to bring those jobs here now more than ever.
And that's a real, it's a shame.
Yes.
And it's arguably a crime.
Yeah.
Might be a little bit of hyperbole on my part, but we firmly believe as an industry that a good paying, family sustaining manufacturing job is certainly a gateway to the middle class. It's an opportunity to have a long, rewarding career, live a life that you can be proud of and help contribute to the economy, to your community. But circling back and speaking of, you mentioned Mike Rowe, and you mentioned
Yes. Okay.
Make America. So I Make America, we launched that actually in Washington, D.C. 12 years ago with the help of Mike Rowe. Came to Washington. We went up to Capitol Hill, and we kicked it off. And so what is I Make America? You may wonder. It's a national grassroots campaign. We've got about north of 40,000 supporters. Many of them are men and women from our industry, but they're also their family members, their neighbors, and people who use the equipment that we make. So whether you're a contractor or a farmer, and really this is the voice of the industry. This is how we try to ensure that our elected officials in Washington, D.C. and in state capitals across the country move our industry forward by pushing diligently pro-manufacturing policy. So I'll give you an example. We were in Las Vegas earlier this year at ConExpo ConAg, which is our largest trade show. It's the largest trade show in the Western Hemisphere, construction, utility, and mining equipment. We had about 140,000 folks in attendance during the week. And we spent a lot of time and effort at the show educating attendees about pro-manufacturing policies and the need to get involved, right? Because you and I can sit here, we can complain all day long about all the policies that aren't working, about why government isn't doing what they need to do to move our country forward. But if we don't do anything about it, well, we'll be complaining until we die, and not much will have happened, right? So we try to impress upon the people who are connected to our industry that they need to take action. So as a result of that, we sent 88,000 letters, emails. I suppose it's the 21st century. So emails to members of Congress, Republicans and Democrats, asking them, urging them, pleading with them to take immediate action on a number of things, bolstering our domestic energy supply,
Yes.
passing a farm bill on time so that our farmers have the safety nets that they need to continue to feed not just our country, but the rest of the world, and to continue to invest in workforce, to create an environment that is focused around multiple pathways for as many people as possible to family-sustaining jobs. So that's what we've been up to. And if you want to get involved, if any of your listeners want to get involved, they can go to hub.imakeamerica.org. There's lots of information.
Okay, thank you for that. I was about to ask you about that. And then I also want to kind of go back to what you were also just mentioning about reforming, permitting reform. Reforming the permitting process is very important to the energy sector. And we're glad to see that it is for the Association of Equipment Manufacturing also. How can we unleash that full potential of domestic energy production and deliver critical infrastructure? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it really comes down to a shift in mindset. Every single president since Ronald Reagan has tried to reform our permitting system, and not a single one has been successful. And I talk about a mindset, right? I think that, when these rules and regulations were created, I think the mindset is, and correctly so, that they're meant to protect, our environment, to protect our neighborhoods, our communities, to ensure that they remain vibrant. And that's a good thing. We need that. That's important to our quality of life. However, when the rules and regulations go so far and become so onerous that they're less about protecting, but more about throwing up barriers to advancing our economy or our communities, then that's where the problem, becomes acute. And right now we have a tremendous opportunity in front of us. A couple of years ago, you'll know this, Ray, Congress passed, President signed into law, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Tremendous amount of money for infrastructure projects of all kinds. We're talking underground, above ground, roads, bridges, waterways, locks and dams, everything that we need as a country to be successful. Well, now the current rules and regulations are standing in the way of unleashing that potential. Why, in the 21st century in the United States of America, should it take 5 to 10 years to permit a new highway that we as an industry need to move parts and components to plants and then equipment to customers around the world? But also that excuse me, Ray, that you and I need to take our kids to baseball practice or to go to church or to go visit our family. Why should it take 5 to 10 years to build a new power plant that we need to generate sustainable energy so that we can lower the cost of energy for manufacturers and for Americans? So that's the problem right now, is that the rules and regulations have become so onerous. The process has become so cumbersome that we're holding ourselves back. And I can tell you this, I couldn't tell you what the exact rules and regulations are for permitting a new infrastructure project in China, but I can tell you that it's a lot quicker than it is here. And this year alone, China is scheduled to have built by the end of the year somewhere around 2,000 to 3,000 miles of brand new high-speed rail to accommodate new modern trains.
Wow.
We cannot even modernize the tracks we need to put a new train on the route from Philadelphia to New York. So this becomes a national security issue pretty quickly, Ray.
Now, speaking of that, because I'm going to use an example also. How far is the drive, or time wise, is the drive from Philadelphia to New York if you're driving it normally, like on a good day?
On a good day, a couple of hours.
So what, 3 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours?
Yeah, 2 hours.
Okay. See, that would be like for me going from Fort Worth to Wichita Falls, and we can't even get one that we want to get done from Dallas to Houston, which is a 4-hour drive. So yeah, no, I mean, it's just common sense has left Washington. I don't know why you're there, Kip, because the common sense has left.
Someone has to be, Ray.
Well, look. What do you think, as we're wrapping up 2023, what are some of the issues that you and your team are going to be focused on for 2024 and going towards those elections coming up here this coming November of 24?
Right. So right now we're laser focused on the Farm Bill. And let me just make a point that we make every single time we talk to a lawmaker or a staffer or someone in the administration that, yes, obviously a Farm Bill is critically important to our farmers and ranchers. They need the safety nets that are included in the Farm Bill so that they can continue to do what they do best, which is to plant and harvest and the food that we all eat. But the Farm Bill is much more than that. It is also an investment in rural America. It's an investment in communities that desperately need greater connectivity, greater access to e-healthcare, e-education. So we see the Farm Bill really as a critical way of bolstering rural communities across the country. So we need the Farm Bill passed. It expired at the end of September. Now, many of the programs don't run out of funding until the end of the year, but there are a number of critical programs, one being on the dairy side, that if there is no Farm Bill passed by the end of the year or an extension, will spell disaster for many farmers across the country. So we are urging Democrats and Republicans to, at the very least, pass a clean 1-year extension. Many of the programs in the Farm Bill are annual. So we need a, for the certainty that farmers and ranchers depend on, we need a 1-year extension. It can be clean, meaning no changes to the current farm bill. We've had that for 5 years. It's actually worked out pretty well. So give farmers and ranchers the same conditions for another year until the Democrats and Republicans can hammer out a compromise. But they got to get that done. We really thought, I'm an optimist, you have to be, in this town. I really thought that they were going to get it done this year. But they're not. I mean, they lost 3 weeks trying to figure out who the next Speaker of the House was going to be, and there's still a lot of flashpoints between Democrats and Republicans. So get a farm bill done. That's not just a priority this year; it will be a priority next year. We have some tax policy tweaks that we would like to see made, particularly as it relates to R&D. Obviously, R&D is the lifeblood of any industry. Certainly is for us. We want more R&D to happen in this country. You used to be able to immediately deduct any and all R&D expenses in the year in which they occurred. There were some changes made to the tax code a few years ago where that was phased out. So now you have to amortize it over 5 years. That puts us at a competitive disadvantage. Looking at China yet again as an example, they have a super deduction. That's 200% that you can deduct of your R&D costs. Now, I was not a math major, but that to me sounds like that's a state subsidy if you're deducting 200%.
Wow.
Right?
That used to be something for oil and gas investments back when my dad got started in the 80s, that it was basically 2 times your money back, or for every dollar you get, $2 in tax deductions.
That made sense, right? Because we tried to grow this nascent industry. We try to bolster it. But for us, obviously, we're competing on a global level. For us to not have an immediate deduction and then compete against companies that can benefit from 200% deduction, that puts us at a competitive disadvantage. So we'd like to see that happen as well. Obviously, the FAA reauthorization, this may sound wonky, but I think anyone could relate to the fact that the federal agency charged with keeping our skies safe should probably be funded. You can argue about how much or how little, but they probably should have some money. And there's actually a lot of infrastructure projects, funding for infrastructure projects in that bill, modernizing the roads around airports, modernizing access points. That helps anyone who's flying, modernizing terminals. So we would like to see that happen as well. That obviously means more manufacturing jobs, more construction jobs. So those are 3 priorities that we're decently optimistic that we will see movement on next year. This year, perhaps we can get something on a tax extenders package at the end of the year, but it's tough. I mean, look,
it's the end of the year. The year, it's over. It's done.
Every issue has a champion typically. But then there's a polar opposite issue that also has a champion, right? So then you end up fighting against each other, and that just no one wins. No one wins. The only one who wins when we're fighting against each other are our global competitors.
Ooh, I like that. The only ones who win when we're fighting, when Americans fight each other, the only ones that win are the global competitors. I like that. And something else I want to, you mentioned you went into great detail about your farm bill. I feel like we could do a whole 30 minutes on that, Kip. But here in Texas, we had a oil well restimulation bill that didn't get passed, didn't get over the finish line. And some of the same ideas, tax credits for going into old oil wells to rework them, but also you would be bolstering the rural America economies, going back into some of these old dying oil towns and revitalizing these towns, whether it's a gas station or the local diners. So who knows? Maybe we need to jump on this with you guys on the federal level or something like that. But
we could. Look, I think if we can go back, and I'm not an expert on the oil and gas industry, but if you can go back and you can go back to old wells and try to squeeze some more out of them, that seems to me to be an efficiency that we should capitalize on and
absolutely
incentivize rural communities. I mean, you've read the stories in the paper, you watched the stories on the local news or national news, right, about how expensive it is in major metropolitan areas, and how many Americans are looking to move to rural areas, either for quality of life or lifestyle choices, just to make the economics make more sense. So we should investing in rural communities. I'll give you one. I mean, it's obviously I believe in it passionately, but from our industry's perspective, if you look at the latest census data, roughly 1/3 of all Americans live in what the Census Bureau, describes as a rural area.
Oh,
For our industry, 2.3 million men and women, that number jumps to 2/3. So 2/3 of our employee base as an industry live and work in rural areas. So we are overrepresented in rural America. So,
wow.
goes rural America, so goes the equipment manufacturing industry. It's not at all uncommon. We were just a few weeks ago, a month, we were out in Minnesota for a Farm Bill listening session at an equipment manufacturer. We hosted some lawmakers and we talked about the Farm Bill. It's not at all uncommon if you go to an equipment manufacturer in a rural area that the person who's welding or fabricating or painting during the day is also farming on the side on the weekend.
Yeah.
So we are interconnected, deeply connected to rural America.
Well, Kip, rural America is the heart. I feel like the backbone of America. I mean, I've said it before, whether it's an oil field job, a farmer, a rancher, somebody building the equipment, and using their hands on a daily basis. Those are the men and women that are the backbone of this country that allow Wall Street with everybody that wears a suit and tie every day. And yeah, I consider to be able to raise the stock or lower it. It's because of all the hardworking men and women that get their hands dirty every day. As we run out of time, Kip, I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to come on and give truly the crude truth on what's going on in Washington, D.C. and sharing with us what's going on with manufacturing here in America and why we don't have more of it. How can people find the Association of the Equipment Manufacturers and reach out to you guys?
It's real simple. It's AEM for Association of Equipment Manufacturers, AEM.org. And I would encourage all your listeners to make their voices heard. We talked about this earlier, Ray. We can sit around, grab a beer, and complain about our elected officials. But the reality is that, they ran for office. I firmly believe most of them to make a difference.
Yes.
And so we ought to provide them with input on what they're doing, provide them with some data points on the various issues that they are considering. And if we're not happy with them, well, then we need to go and vote.
Yes.
We need to get involved because if we don't, well, then who will, right? And as a country, I feel like we are at an inflection point here. The future for manufacturing in many ways, I think, is looking brighter than it ever has been. And part of that was as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, where we realized that maybe we should be making a few more things in this country.
Absolutely, yes.
States are a little too vulnerable and susceptible to geopolitical forces. We're seeing that now, what's going on in Taiwan, in Ukraine. So that's I think it's a good thing. Our mindset has sort of shifted a little bit, but now I think we're running into the problem of we don't have the policies in place to encourage growth. We need to build and open up more plants. We need more manufacturers to put operations in the United States. We're still short many critical inputs, whether they, chips, microprocessors, wire harnesses, tires. So we need more parts and components manufacturers to come here. We need to attract more foreign-owned manufacturers. We need to be seen as the number one destination in the world to manufacture. To do that, of course, then we need a tax policy that's wired for growth. We need an education system that encourages multiple pathways, not just a 4-year degree liberal arts college pathway. And then we need a mindset shift in Washington or in Austin or wherever state capital that focuses on how do we make it easier for job creators to do what they do best, right? Which is to invest in their businesses, grow their businesses, create more family sustaining jobs, and strengthen their community. So I think if we can do all of that, it's no small task. I think we're well on our way, but we just got to keep hammering home the message that manufacturing. It's good for the economy. It's good for the country. It's a matter of national security, Ray.
Amen. And that's the crude truth. Kip, will you give us the I Make America contact info one more time as well?
Yes, sir. No, not at all. So it's hub.imakeamerica.org.
Okay. Well, Kip, again, I cannot thank you enough. And for everybody out there, one more time, Kip Eidenberg, who's Senior Vice President of Government and Industry Relations at the Association of American Manufacturing. And I just cannot thank you enough. And it's the Association of Manufacturing Equipment. I kind of got twisted up there. Sorry about that. Wow, I can't. Association of Equipment Manufacturing. You got me off. Sorry about that, Kip.
All right. Manufacturing in there a few more times. That's good.
Well, Kip, I cannot thank you enough. And I look forward to having you in studio here next time you're in Texas. We need to do another one. This is so important. And like you said, this is, I mean, you just, in your closing statement, it's a domino effect. And we need to start here with manufacturing made in America and bring more manufacturing back to America. So thank you so much for coming on. And we'll see y'all again here next time on another episode of The Crude Truth.
Again, thank you to our sponsors, LFS Chemistry, NAPE Expo, Air Compressor Solutions, Exec Crew, Oil and Gas Workers Association, Pecos Country Operating.
The easiest way to start your own podcast and TV show? Real News Communications Network. Stand out from your competition. Produce streams of high-quality social media content. Become a thought leader in your industry. With RNCN, you get to be the host. We handle everything else. Tour one of our 3 locations in Dallas, Fort Worth, and the Colony. Call 972-402-6333 or visit launchashow.com to find out more.